But what would be the alternative? Because, growing up in Singapore, that's all you hear. That, we need to be very efficient with whatever we do. Meritocracy is the only way for a country the size of ours. And we keep hearing this. So what would be an alternative?
An alternative, I think, is to believe that we must always have structural meritocracy. Now, structural meritocracy means, for example, you can't, and we do have that very well, right? Mm-hmm. You can't buy your way into a good Singapore school. Mm. I've always totally believed that we should never have private schools in Singapore, which is good. We have some degree of disparity already with the SAP schools, independent schools, but I have always believed very strongly that the best Singapore students should go to the best Singapore schools. And there's already a bit of elitism, but not to go to private schools. We do not have the equivalent of Etons and Harrows, and we do not have private universities here. Mm. So we have a structured system of egalitarianism. We have a structural system of meritocracy, which I would defend to the death. Mm. However, we should always realize, and to give the government and our leadership today the credit, they realize that we now have no longer a dynamic meritocracy. We have a kind of entrenched meritocracy where the system is meritocratic. You take exams, you can never buy your way into any university in Singapore. You can't buy your way into anything. Mm. You can get a bit of influence maybe, but not beyond the bounds of what is normal. But we need to recognize that in actual fact, a lot of the meritocracy that we have isn't really meritocratic. Mm. And we must introduce a higher rate of dynamic meritocracy, which also means more pathways to success at every level of life. Mm. That definitely helps a lot more in terms of meritocracy. Mm. Right now, your life, your career, your future is laid out pretty much in your pre-teens, teens, and young adulthood. Yeah. And the way to get back up again when you haven't done so well isn't there. So we need to be meritocratic as a system, but we must recognize that meritocracy as a buzzword is not the only solution for Singapore. Mm-hmm. It is a system better than any other, like capitalism is better than any other system, but that doesn't it shouldn't make us believe that capitalism is the godsend of everything. It's not. There's so many faults with capitalism, but it's the best of all other systems. Meritocracy is a system which is the best of all systems, but it's got a lot of faults to it, and we must consciously be aware of it so that we can change it to develop a more fair and dynamic meritocracy.
Mm-hmm. But people have spoken up against streaming, especially for young children before, right? But sometimes the counter argument is that some of the parents even want the streaming because it's a way for them to understand where their child is at in life and compared to his peers and all. Do you think there's an element of it's already been so long since we've been doing this that it's already ingrained in our culture, our system, Singaporean kiasuness to want to be measured against your peers and know where you are?
Well, if you just look at it, it's kind of like a NIMBY effect. Mm. Those families that have got kids who are bright would love to have streaming. Mm-hmm. Those parents whose kids are late developers probably don't want to have streaming, right? I mean, the minute you have streaming, as in a very inherent concept of streaming is some people get ahead, some people don't, right? I mean, that's what streaming is all about. Otherwise, you don't stream. Yeah. So the obvious point also is that those kids who are streamed downwards are definitely not happy about it. Mm-hmm. Those kids who are streamed upwards are very happy about it. So the parents who don't want streaming to end are largely going to be your upper middle class kids, parents who are already very successful, who can afford a lot of tuition and many other things. So the kids all get ahead. Mm. So streaming is good for them because it reduces less competition early on in life. So you respond to your own selfish needs. Mm. So that's why, of course, education is a difficult thing because in any educational system change, there will be the people who are on the top don't want more fairness because then their kid will have more competition.